Okay, some of you have asked, and you shall on this channel receive. So, from the Discord, from Peekaboo Sue. Curious on what you think about this. Now, I've spoken with some on the Discord about political rants and all of this, and news and trending, whatever, geopolitical, blah, blah, blah. And as some of you know, I am a boogeyman for the left. I'm a right wing extremist, far ultra right, alt right everything. And absolutely, if I had power, I'd do the same to them as they try to do to me, and actually have tried to end me as well, so I'd do the same thing. That said, from Peekaboo Sue, curious on what you think about Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson are done with Trump. Of course, it's from the Young Turks. Of course, it would be. Definitely not going to like it. And yeah, that's about as far as that's going to go. Not going to join, subscribe, or nothing because, well, I actually hate the Young Turks and everything about them. Just look up the Armenian genocide. No better than the Nazis. That said, let's honor the request, shall we? But God, do I? You know what? I need. How do I fix that watermark stuff? Yeah, screw y'all's watermarking BS. I don't give a shit for it. All right, so let's grow this a bit. Is it centered? It's close-ish to center. Good enough. Anyway, all right, now with the watermark removed, because screw them entirely and everything they stand for and think and believe in whatever. Let's go.
And now here's our president, not even a month and a half into the conflict, which we are not winning, by the way, because the Straits of Hormuz are not open.
You have a weird definition of winning. I'll put it very simply for you. If you have complete and total domination of your enemy, even if they're still fighting, you're winning. That's the definition. If you're running the race and you're in one of the top spots against everybody else, you are winning. And as a combat veteran who has faced these people before, go to hell, Tucker Carlson. If I ever met you, I'd punch you in the face and break all your teeth. That said, he's a bit of a traitor in every way, shape, and form. He took the checks. I have no tolerance. I have zero whatsoever of anything towards the man ever since he's done what he's done. Well, anyway, let's continue. But yeah, just
there's one way to keep track. That's the measurement. Saying that we're going to use our military to kill the civilians of this country.
False. False, because he's not talking about the civilians of the country. He's talking about the military, right, and the regime. So the government and their personnel and the IRGC, Cage, and all of that, right? The Ayatollah's regime and all that. That's who they're talking to. They're talking about and when he said, when he was addressing saying a civilization will die tonight, he was not speaking of the Iranian people. He was speaking of the IRGC, of Cage, and of the Islamic regime. That is, well, the dominant tyrants of the country. Not the same thing at all.
to use the U.S. military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure, run as a...
Yes. If that infrastructure is being used to keep the war going. Yes. Duh.
modern country, what happens when it loses power? Well, people die.
The people of Iran are telling us to bomb more and to keep doing more. And they know what we're going to target. They're able to get similar amounts of information to everybody else. Stuff keeps on going in and coming out, even though they've shut off the internet a few times. I'm talking about the regime. They know what they're asking for. Your pretense, tuck yourself between your legs, Carlson, has no water to keep it afloat here. You're on barren, dry, empty desert as far as any moral high ground or nothing else. Your pontification means shit. Not to mention you're defending a regime that has slaughtered tens of thousands of its own people. No, just no.
Babies connected to incubators die. People in hospitals die. It is vile.
Yes. And the same people affected by this are asking for everything else to be done. Because they have made the decision that it is better to have to suffer a great amount in the short term comparative to the war going on and being concluded in order for them to have a much better future. Now, as far as us, we're just trying to destroy the regime. We're trying to wipe out the number one state sponsor of terror on the planet. It just so happens the people are on our side and want us to keep doing it. It's a very clear, defining line there. Now, as far as the Strait of Hormuz being open or closed, I mean, we could leave it open and just say, hey, take your chances, go on through. But what keeps happening to every ship that goes in and out? Now, as far as the strait being open or closed, well, there's a lot more to play at that than how simple you're trying to make it. You're simplifying this all the way down to hell. And as someone who's a simple man myself, I'm just an internet retard with a backwards hat who's a combat veteran and has been over in these places a lot more than you have. And I didn't get the golden spoon, white glove treatment from any of them. I was fighting their extreme elements directly. So you have to shut the fuck up, honestly. That said, funny things are happening because now we're actually trying to keep it closed. Ain't that funny? Ain't that hilarious? But on the other hand, we're trying to do all things at once, which I also don't agree with. What I want is just for us to completely and totally destroy them and not let up until we have removed them entirely from power and the people are armed. Which it's sad that the Kurds kind of betrayed us there because we sent a bunch of stuff to the Kurds and they just took it and did nothing else with it. They're using it for themselves when it's supposed to be given to the Iranian people. Or at least that's as far as I know about it so far. That said, I too do not want to be boots on the ground for 20 fucking years again. I don't want to play this PC, touchy-feely, whang, 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 things are happening in a war, liberal lefty bullshit. I want to crush my enemies. I want to see them driven before me and hear the lamentations of those who believe in the same evil as them as we continue to wipe them out. That's what I want. And besides, people are going to come back to the point of, oh, Trump said no new wars. This isn't a new war. We've been at war with all of their terrorist brethren, whom they are the source of, and directly at war with them since their inception. This isn't a new war. We've just decided to actually try and end it permanently. But for the last 47 plus years, we've been, babyfooting about it. We've been beating around the bush and getting nothing done. We've been subject to the liberal, international, economy, right? Whatever else you want to call it, the lie that says, oh, you have to only fight the enemy in an equal footing. I've lost people because of that bullshit. We have taken so many casualties, horrendously so, for the simple fact and reason that we were subject to rules the enemy never agreed to. That shit stops now. I got a whole chest of freaking bracelets and memorials and, copies of Battle Buddies dog tags whom I had to carry off the field. Or who died right there while I held them and told them they were going to make it. No more. If we're going to war, I don't want to be subject to any more deaths in vain for some liberals' fucking vanity. All right, where was I? I got interrupted by something much better. Anyway, I lost where I was. I'm going to stop ranting so much. Let's let more of it play, but this shit gets me absolutely incensed.
On every level.
Tucker Carlson leveled the
Hey, it's Anna. We should murder all our babies all the time. Kasparian.
Harshest criticism of Donald Trump, offering a scathing monologue, calling Trump out for threatening Holocaust on the Iranian people.
That's false. That's a lie. They're making it up. And if anything, it actually would be a good thing if the IRGC, Cage, and all of them, Daesh, ISIL, Al Qaeda, and every one of them, all were wiped out, because the terrorist civilization we face does deserve to die. So, even if true, what's specifically being addressed obviously is being twisted by you, right? This is what they do. Take things out of context and then use them to their own evil propagandistic means. Because the thing is that the civilization we face is one of terrorism. And it's not civil. So calling it a civilization, I think, was a big error on Trump's part. Because a civilization, right, is more akin to what the U.S. somewhat still has some remnants of internally, versus someone who's stockpiling a bunch of weapons in a hut and waiting to go kill some innocent people just for funsies.
Now, before we get into it, Cenk, he even defended Muslims in the face of Trump's mockery of the Muslim faith and more. Your 2 cents.
Islam is evil. End of discussion.
Yeah, I was shocked by how severe this was.
Hey, it's Chunk Yogurt. Chunk Yogurt. Oh my God. And he's the same guy that said he would legalize bestiality. Which, I mean, make of that what you will when it comes to somebody like him.
He basically talked about how Donald Trump's not a real Christian. And there's a fact in here that I never knew that is devastating about Trump in regards to the Bible. And in fact, some are saying, and I can see why, having watched it, that he's implying that Trump is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
That is Wow. Tucker Carlson, who helped Trump in all those elections, now saying that Trump is evil. It is amazing.
And if you look at Tucker Carlson's donors list, that pretty much explains why he's very much incentivized to literally lie. If I was getting like, $8 million or something ridiculous like that, right? I'd probably end up saying some really, really stupid shit too. If you're getting rich off of it, why not? If the only thing that matters to you is the money, well, then there's no moral or ethical boundaries to that, is there?
Now, Tucker Carlson's monologue came out prior to Trump threatening to wipe out Iran's civilization. However, the monologue came.
And the current civilization of Iran is Islamic extremism. Although the difference between extreme Islam and moderate Islam is quite literally one is doing the actual, one is actually taking action. I'm trying to simplify it further. And one is just supporting it. Literally it.
After Trump had posted this on Truth Social, Tuesday, by the way, this was on Easter morning. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump.
They're going to take this at face value and put it out of context. Right? Now, here's the thing. People are going to think, oh, they're just stupid. They don't understand. No, they do. They do. They're at least similar to level to me and you. Right? But this is what I'm talking about when I tell people never underestimate the left. They're not stupid. Their lower level, foot soldiers are. Same thing with in Islam. They're not stupid. They're malevolently intelligent. Think about the stories of the devil. Okay? I mean, just the basic standard one. They saw a being of light. And the being of light, looked like an angel and spoke sweet nothings to them and convinced them to do all sorts of things. Only in the end did they realize that it was the devil with whom they had spoken. The same thing is applied to the left. The left is, just like Islam, anti-Christ. And when I talk about malevolent evil, they deliberately, purposefully scheme, deviously these things. If you and I were to look at this, well, a normal, sane human looks at this and they say, okay, so this is what he's saying he's going to have the military do. He's expletive towards them like a working person would be. Calling them really what they are. They are crazy bastards. Or you'll be living in hell. Well, the thing is that the IRGC and cage infrastructure is tied with civilian infrastructure. They're not separate things. So in order to target the regime further, civilian infrastructure is next. That's how that works. And then that will force them to be even more one of two things. Either more compliant and to stop utilizing their taqiyya, which taqiyya in Islam is sanctioned lying to the kafar, right? And leftism has the same thing. Leftism is basically the trick of the devil, right? To pretend to be your friend as long as you're on their side. And then, accuse you of what they are and project onto you to deflect, redirect, and all of that. Leftism sanctions lying, period. There is no moral or ethical standard or boundary against it within leftism or Islam, which is why they get along so well, because they're two sides that are actually one side of the same thing, which is, well, evil. Very human evil. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. What he's saying here, right, is in huge mockery towards the Islamic faith, right? And it could be a double entendre as well, because they call the God of Islam Allah. That's his name. But they pretend like they worship the same God as Christians. So Trump is slapping them with both sides of his hand right there. I freaking love it. The guy's great. But yeah, anyway, very purposeful, deliberate, malicious, malevolent intelligence at work here from the part of the Young Turks.
Now, before we get to more video highlights, I want to address what Tucker had to say about Trump and the Bible. He apparently noticed that when Trump was inaugurated for the second time, he didn't put his hand on the Bible. I didn't notice that, but apparently Tucker did, and it bothered him, but he just kind of ignored it, didn't say anything about it until the issue came up, and he mentioned it in this monologue. And so he feels that Trump didn't put his hand on the Bible because he was intending to carry out some of the actions that he's been carrying out. And
oh no. Oh no. Actually, let's fact check that real quick, because it'd be really interesting if Trump was making a bit of a statement with it, which wouldn't really surprise me, honestly. He does a lot of things that people don't necessarily, myself included, look at and are like, oh, this might have this other thing going on later. Very interesting. He didn't, but Melania was holding his mother's Bible from 1955 and the Lincoln Bible. Interessante. That is very interesting. Not damning, though, because why am I going to accept them having a problem with it? Because these people are Antichrist in every way. In fact, they hate Christians. They hate Catholics. They hate everybody but Islamics and leftists. So why do I care that they say anything about it? They don't believe in this in the first place. So basically, this is just Gish Gallop. Yeah, that's essentially what this is Gish Gallop. They're just filling the space with words to try and add to their self-proclaimed stack of evidence that, Donald Trump is an antichrist. When literally their ideologies on both sides of things are quite literally anti-Christ. Very interesting.
some interpreted what Tucker Carlson had to say there as calling Trump the Antichrist. I didn't get that feel, but maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention.
He kept talking.
Yep, Gish Gallop. Gish Gallop. and ambiguity, a statement of ambiguity, leaning towards a seemingly inevitable conclusion. Okay, just more leftist nonsense.
About this is not Christianity.
Right.
And this is something else, something different, something opposed to Christianity. Okay.
Oh, shut up. You're not even Christian. See, this is a problem a lot of people have, is that they're like, "Oh, you're using my own standards you don't follow or believe in against me? Oh my god. I must surrender to you immediately." Yeah, no. If you fall for that shit, you're just a damn fool. Because the ancient Christians would have just put a sword through your throat.
So now you could say maybe he was referring to another religion. Clearly wasn't Islam, because he said positive things about Islam. Or, I'm not a Christian, so I'm not that well versed in what is the opposite of Christianity. But, we've all heard in popular culture, Satan, Antichrist, etc. And he kept saying this is the opposite of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
What's really funny is that here's this mindset being put on display, and this guy's not even a self-proclaimed Christian. Called it or what? I haven't actually looked into chunk yogurt, or or Anna conspiratorian, or Anna Castarian. Anyway, Anna constipation, Anna consternation. Well, anyway, but it's funny. It's really funny because, again, according to the tenets of what they believe in, their ideology, and their supposed favored religion, even though I don't know nothing about their religion or their beliefs, or, as far as that goes, but they support Islam, which makes me believe that they are in some measure followers of Islam. So, of course, Taqiyya would come naturally to them as leftists. So, yeah, but it is really funny that from those who profess to be proponents of, followers of, worshippers of a literal antichrist ideology are saying these things. But on top of that, here's the thing about the church. When Jesus, and this is not too heavily debated, when Jesus spoke of the foundation of the church, did he point to a building and say, you can only worship here? Did he point to the institution of the church and say, only through this can you worship and follow me? What did he do? The famous thing is that he said it to St. Peter. On this rock I shall build my church. He spoke of a person. Therefore, people. A church is not a building. It's not an institutional structure. And it's not some kind of, giant coliseum. It's not a monolithic entity unto itself, existent, just implied. It's people. It is those who follow the faith. It is Christians that make up Christianity. Without the followers of Christ and those who worship God, there is no church. Never can be and never would have been. Jesus was very purposeful in what he did. And he knew what he was doing. Quite obviously. So yes, him having this idea that he's professing is very leftist, and it's taken over the church, or what people refer to as the church, when in all reality the church itself should be the congregation, not some structure or building or physical, whatever. The institution can be debated, sure, but the actual faith are the people. So that said, he is very much an exemplar of this fallacy, this falsehood. Because you'll see a lot of fake Christians online doing this as well. They will think because they go to a structure that has the iconography of the church, or what is understood today in the modern day as the church, which is the building, that makes them Christians, that makes them of the faith, that makes them followers of Jesus and worshipers of God. This is an absolute lie. And it is one of the truer forms today of false witness and idolatry. It is the people, the true Christians, for whom they are the church. It's not the popes, it's not the bishops, it's not the cardinals, it's not the priests. All of them are supposed to be representatives. All of them are supposed to be the personifications of the faith and exemplars thereof. In today's society, very few, in fact, much rarer now, are such. But the fact of the matter is that we have never truly actually needed them, nor the institution, nor the building, the structures, the idolatry, or none of it. It is the congregation that comes together in faith, doing good works and deeds. It is those who truly follow the Word of God, Scripture, the Bible, and the teachings and example of Jesus Christ. They are the true Christians, and they are the true church. What people refer to the church now is a leftist and now Islamically married abomination and grave sin against God, period. So yeah, it makes no surprise for me that a leftist and a even low-level follower of Islam would say such a thing as he is. It doesn't surprise me in the least. But let me know what you think.
And saying like, why did he not put his hand on the Bible? That shows you that he does believe in the Bible and that he's planning to violate that oath. That's why he didn't put his hand on it. And he talked about how this kind of like stealing from the Venezuelans is the opposite of what Christ would do and what Christians would do. Threatening to kill all these people is the opposite of what Christians would do.
He didn't threaten to kill Venezuelans. Not at all. He was talking to the regime, to their military, and Maduro. But he didn't say he was going to go wipe out Venezuelans. Nor did he, did he? Interessante.
So it was super heavy criticism and very much on religious grounds.
No, I mean, as someone who...
Sure, it was justified, but using a bastardized version of religion for which, actually, it's not at all what it's supposed to be. And it seems like the statement that may have been made is actually related directly to the current, I guess you would call it feud between the new woke Pope, which Catholicism's always been wrong for this. I mean, I like Catholicism to a decent degree, although I lean closer to Christianity. True Christianity, not all the crap we have today. And in that, right? I mean, Catholics, the Pope is an idol. That's idolatry. Do not worship false idols before me. That's what the Pope is. The Pope, his office, all of that. Because before, at least they had some pretense of trying to be a representative of God on earth and to try to follow the example of Jesus Christ. Directly so. They don't take such pretense today. They're failures. They're failures and just craven creatures too. It's not good. But anyway, that being said, again, this is all on false religious, false religious grounds. So none of it holds any merit anyway.
Grew up going to Sunday school every Sunday until I was 19 years old. I appreciated what he had to say about Christianity because I think Christianity, thanks to so-called Christian Zionism, has been bastardized in this country. People have been brainwashed into thinking supporting a foreign government is what will get you into heaven. Luckily,
hey, it's one of the few things that she's actually said that's correct. What was his name? Lindsey Graham said something real stupid and retarded recently. And everyone like him is also stupid and retarded in this regard. No. Just, supporting Israel, period, no matter what, okay, is not a path to heaven. In and of itself, no, it's not an end all be all. That is mistaken. That's false. That's absolutely a lie. Now, there is a phrase that takes many forms. Those who basically those who are in favor of Israel will be favored by God. Essentially, right? There's a million different ways this is coined and phrased. And those who are against Israel will be against God. Essentially, there's many different ways this is said. However, a lot of people leave out the context of it, right? Israel being, those who were seeking to be servants of God. Those who, right? And nowadays, right, it's used as a cudgel against people and those who are not likened unto trying to go through all of this themselves. They are offloading their locus of control of themselves to another so that they can externalize their thinking and all that to them. So basically NPC type of behavior, right? No, it's not an end all be all. And if anything else, at the very least, it is more of a statement towards supporting those who do good, moral, and ethical deeds according to the word of thy God and the examples and teachings of Jesus. And also that those who go against those who are trying to do good and to worship and follow and serve God and the teachings and examples of Jesus will therefore be those who are not subject to it or for it, right? I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can. Apologies if I'm leaving a shit ton of stuff out. Because I'm trying not to make this an hour long. Never mind, it's like 40 minutes. Jesus, nobody's watching this. If you do, you're a freaking champ. Mad respect to you. And I appreciate your time, patience, and understanding. And feel free to criticize me as well. I'm not opposed to that. Just if you're going to be a dumbhead, then The criticism means nothing. So that said, all right, it's used as a cudgel. That's one thing she said I've ever heard from her that's actually correct and true. There are absolute insane idiots out there who are like, hey, all we have to do is, support Israel and we'll go to heaven. No, no, no. That's not how that works at all. These are the same kind of people who have the attitude of John Constantine in the movie with Keanu Reeves. Hey, haven't I taken out enough demons to buy my way into heaven? Because I'm dying? And what does Gabriel say? No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You must be the one doing good deeds, good works, following the word of God, doing your damned bestest as a human, period. Morally and ethically, objectively so, and following the example and teachings of Jesus Christ. All the saints and everything combined. That must come from you. You can't externalize it. You can't offload it to somebody else. When you stand at the pearly gates before St. Peter or before God or before Jesus or any of them, right? What does Baldwin say in the kingdom of heaven? It's so accurate here. You cannot say, I was ordered thus. This will not suffice. You cannot go before anything related to God when comes judgment and make excuses or pass blame or give pretense and bear false witness of yourself, because you will be judged yourself. No one else is going to be judged in your stead, and no one else, period, is going to be given from the weight of anything and everything you've done that's on your head. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's always going to work. And as far as I'm aware, that has never changed. It's simply been twisted, perverted, and absolutely and completely and totally usurped and used to the ends of evil to make it seem like something it's not. So that said, thus why, I speak of the stuff on my own head. I've done plenty bad. I have sinned. I am a sinner. But does that excuse me from trying? Because at the end of the day, when I die, and there is a God, and I go to be judged, I can make no excuses. Anything and everything possible bad will be on me. All those sins I will have to answer for. Anyways, that said, one of the few things she's actually right about.
The church I went to wasn't brainwashed by that unhinged Zionist ideology. But I hate the fact that Christianity has been smeared as something that it is not. But putting that aside, Tucker Carlson also had some thoughts on what Trump had posted on Easter morning. And here's what he had to say.
It is vile on every level. It begins with a promise to use the US military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure in another country, which is to say to commit a war crime, a moral crime against the people of the country.
Okay, this whole war crime nonsense. I see Tucker has said nothing about them slaughtering their own people. So there's that. Although I wouldn't really consider them their own people, because the Iranian people are subjugated by an Islamic regime. Iran was not originally, or Persia, was not originally Islamic. It was conquered by Islam. So I don't consider that true or factual. Now, that out of the way, war crime? So you're going to judge the United States of America, its military, and its elected leadership against the metric of an evil regime. None of that period holds any water. And since Tucker Carlson is literally sponsored by Islamics, he can say nothing that means anything of merit. But that also said, a war crime. You know what a war crime is? It's an arbitrary rule set connected with the law of warfare, ROE, which is rules of engagement, and there's another one there somewhere. Geneva Conventions is part of it. But all of these things, at the end of the day, are arbitrary rule sets that are based off of the morality and ethics that we're supposed to follow. However, none of this has been war crime, period. None. They're all legitimate targets. You can't just look at something and declare it a war crime. If that's the case, then every single war period in the history of planet Earth has in itself been a war crime. In fact, actually, if you want to stretch that even further, because this is, again, this is just, this is outright blatant misrepresentation and lying. Okay, you could say that somebody fighting in the street, well, it's a war crime. What's the definition of a war? A wide-scale conflict. Okay, well, these two groups of people that are connected to these two people are always in conflict. Therefore, what happened was the first one to throw the punch committed a war crime. Sentence him. And I'm stretching it to the furthest logical conclusion that can be had when it comes to the application of this. But yeah, no, none of this has been a war crime. But has Iran done so? Absolutely. So for him to sit here and say that the Iranian, the IRGC, Cage and all that, the Ayatollah regime has not committed war crimes, but that the U.S. has, when objectively such is not true. Well, between me and you, if both of us, you watching this and me watching this together, are both normal, rational thinking human beings and not just liar, leftist ideologue liars or an Islamist, we're going to come to the same conclusion. Objective reality does not line up with this at all. But Iran has committed plenty of war crimes. Tons of them. In fact, in its 47-year history, over 6,000 war crimes. Interessante.
Whose welfare, by the way, was one of the reasons we supposedly went into this war in the first place. They're being killed by their government. We have to rescue them. And now here's our president.
Which you denied even happening, as far as I've heard. So why should anybody listen to you still?
Not even a month and a half into the conflict, which we are not winning, by the way, because the Straits of Hormuz are not open. There's one way to keep track. That's the measurement. Saying that
we're the ones that are now blockading the Strait of Hormuz. So of course it's not open. We're blockading it now against the IRGC. So if that's the metric of measurement you're using for winning, since we're the ones in control of the strait right now, and also simultaneously defending against Iranian attacks on it, to the best of our ability, of course. Nobody's infallible, not even us. Then if you're using that metric, logically, reasonably and rationally, then we are winning. This is how you know these guys are grifting, pandering, and lying. They're definitely paid to do it.
Use our military to kill the civilians of this country who didn't choose the war. They got nothing to do with it. They're like civilians everywhere.
Now, unfortunately,
the Iranian regime is killing them, and they're telling us to bomb them more. Even though we've made mistakes in bombing them, they don't care, because to them, the objective good the U.S. is trying to do is worth more than the objective evil that the Iranian regime they have to live with always does. It's pretty simple calculus to come to. That's another reason how you can tell these people are just outright liars.
Trump only doubled down on his
propaganda
threats this morning, writing the following on Truth Social, essentially threatening Holocaust.
And it's funny because down here it says, sick of corporate captured media, support independent media. They're not independent. They have investors. They have investors. They have sponsors. Yeah, I know. They're not independent media. That's a fucking lie. Goddamn leftists.
A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows?
Again, the civilization of terrorism, born from Islamics. Don't let them try to change the definitional target of what is being stated and said. If we were targeting the Iranian people themselves, everything just okay. I have seen true attempted genocide. I have witnessed it. I fought against those who perpetuated it. And if the U.S. military were truly, speaking of wiping out the Iranian people themselves, by this point in the war, there would be no civilians in half the country. Period. It wouldn't take long. It wouldn't take too much. And I've seen what the purposeful targeting of civilians can do with even lower leveled, militaries on the tech tree. This is nowhere even close, period. But anyway, let's continue hearing them, speak from their forked tongues.
Today, luckily, it was announced by Trump that Iran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire.
And they breached it almost immediately. They breached it almost immediately. It did not hold very long at all. Also, they accused Israel in this time frame of being the ones that breached the ceasefire, when it was Iranian proxy forces, Hezbollah, who launched attacks at Israel from Lebanon. However, the ceasefire had nothing to do with Lebanon. It only had to do with Iran. So that means they're admitting that Hezbollah is considered part of the Iranian military elements within the region. Funny how that works. But yeah, it was Israel defending and retaliating against an attack from Hezbollah in Lebanon. So then they accused us of breaching the ceasefire. Well, they accused Israel of breaching the ceasefire. Therefore, by proxy, us. Ah, mierda.
And we've been skeptical of that only because Trump is a pathological liar and usually says that there are good.
And here is the perfect example of a leftist projecting what they are upon everybody else. Projection. Basically, you accuse others of what you do and are. Simplified version.
Negotiations happening because he wants the oil markets to respond favorably to that. And by the way, the fact that oil markets do respond favorably to that should make you realize that the markets are just built on a house of cards. Total BS. However, the New York Times is reporting, you can do with that what you will.
And now at this point in time, this is like a week and a half-ish later. This is about 10 days later. The United States right now is the #1 exporter of oil. According to some metrics, there's some dispute on it, but we are exporting the most oil in the history of the United States of America right now. Mucho curioso.
That Iran has also agreed.
Yeah, but it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Because Iran is declaring victory and they're saying that Trump accepted their 10-point plan and will now pay reparations to Iran for the war. That is not what Trump said. These guys are talking past each other.
They are.
They're not even negotiating. So Trump said we'd consider the 10-point plan, which is backing down massively from what he said before.
He never said anything about accepting terms from them yet. He still hasn't. Oh, brother, this is going to take forever. So much to go through here, but somebody made a request. I must honor it. Let's continue. I forgot where I was. I had to go and take care of something, but I'm sure I'll get reminded here soon.
Now the Iranians are saying, good, okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, the 10-point plan things or whatever, the lies that were spread all over the place. So, the truth of the matter is, which for a second I was almost shocked because I thought that Cenk was actually going to tell the truth. No, he's not telling the truth. All right, so the U.S. has not proposed, to accept any terms from Iran unless they agreed to the terms we proposed to them. Period. So, that said, absolute lies. Trump has never said, and he did admit to this. Trump has never said he was going to agree to their 10-point plan. At all. He never said, you know what, we're going to take this. No. So that's just an outright lie that was spread by the mainstream media or the fake news media, the lying news media. And on top of that, when it came to my batteries are running low today. Well, anyway, that was what he said was a lie also. They're not talking past each other. Iran is just lying. That's just the point. They're practicing their religion. Taqiyya. Taqiyya is part of their religion, which is sanctioned lying. They are allowed to lie. Period. And as of a week ago or something, they were telling they were telling their people to put their kids on the front lines. It's not a joke. It's not taken out of context. That is quite literally the case. They were saying, parents, send your kids to the military. And then when we were about to take out their infrastructure, they forced all of their people to line up around like their power plants and everything to use them as human shields like terrorists always do, which is sucks, but the fact is, at the end of the day, you don't back down. You have to keep going. Unfortunately, civilians are going to die either way. Just try to make it quick. Because what you want to do is you want to end the threat so that no one else has to go through that. And so that also ending the threat will eliminate further civilian casualties. Because if you don't, well, the same thing plays out every single time. You don't negotiate with terrorists, otherwise you get more terrorism. So yeah, that said, let's continue. But yeah, a lot's happened since then.
He accepted the 10-point plan. We're expecting our reparations. And we have won this war. They're declaring victory. So
They're just lying. Again, to Kiev.
none of that happened. The Iranians are not correct. They have not won the war. They are not going to get reparations. Trump is not correct that the Iranians agreed to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
And they're not directly negotiating. They're speaking through Pakistani negotiators or mediators, I should say. So that's important context to keep in mind. By the way, guys, we're live right now, obviously, and this,
which went nowhere because they refused to agree to anything. So we're at this point just gearing up to keep on crushing them, essentially. It's like, okay, you don't want the fight to end? We're going to make it worse.
story is developing rapidly, so please bear with us as we give you updates, throughout the broadcast. But let's get back to Tucker Carlson and what he had to say in that last clip that we showed. Cenk, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, he keeps pounding on this message of opposite of Christianity. Then he got to Paula White, and Paula White is this ludicrous Christian Zionist preacher, like they almost all of Trump's preachers are.
A charlatan.
Yeah, and she started comparing him to Jesus Christ. And that's where Tucker really lost it. And he's like, this is the most sacrilegious thing you could do in Christianity, to compare any human, let alone a politician, to Jesus Christ. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. Now, if they're saying that somebody is trying to follow in the footsteps and by the example of Jesus Christ, then I'd have no issue for that, right? That's what all of us are supposed to do. It is incumbent upon us. That's how it's supposed to be done. However, if it is directly saying he's like the new Jesus Christ, then that's a problem. Then that's an issue. Because there's only one Jesus Christ. There can never be another. However, comparing someone to Jesus Christ, if there is merit or if they're worthy of it, also there is no issue. Right? Because if someone is comparable to him, then that's an amazing achievement. But at the same time, why am I going to listen to the criticisms of anyone that's not, number one, a true follower and believer of the faith, right? So Cenk saying anything about it whatsoever means absolutely nothing. It's all just leftist propaganda. And Tucker Carlson, who actually quite literally is beholden to followers of Islam, so therefore he's not Catholic or Christian either, just in name only. Why should I listen to what either of them has to say anyway? That doesn't make any sense. You cannot be not of me and then try to make me follow my things according to your rules. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. All right, back at it again. This video is too terribly long. Fuck. There's so much to address in this. But I can never have a podcast because, well, I'm just not willing to lie that much, really. It's a severe handicap. It sucks, but the majority of people hate the truth. It's not popular or trendy or nothing else. So, but I just, much as I've tried, just can't do it.
I mean, and then he says you got these dopey
So if you're still here, appreciate it. Thank you. You're a champ. Let's go.
beta pastors in the background nodding along with this. No, no one is Jesus Christ, let alone Donald effing Trump, right? So what Tucker is doing in terms of getting that message out to millions of right wingers who watch him is enormously important.
So important. Yeah.
Well, what Tucker has done, he's traded his right wing audience for a centrist, which is just left wing light, and leftists and Islamists, right? So yeah, he's just trading essentially. He has made a deal with devils, metaphorically speaking, and so now is subservient to and in service of them, to keep things as simple and short and sweet as possible. That's why it's called now Tucker Carlson, or tuck your stuff between your legs, Carlson. But yeah, and well, I'll just say this much: there's been a lot of fakes, frauds, and liars exposed recently. Who are believers more in material things than any principles, morality, or ethics.
He couldn't get that message to them, but
yeah, speaking of those who profess themselves to be arbiters of faith, there is a problem with sycophancy at the top. Now, I understand it, right? If you get powerful and influential people who wish to be in your good favor, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you can use those people towards better ends. However, it is an issue that there is sycophancy at the top that does not seem to serve the will of the people, nor do these people serve the actual church, which is the congregation of those that are followers of Christ and worshipers of God. That's just a fact.
Tucker is getting that message to them, and they're beginning to see with their own eyes. Yeah, why didn't he swear on the Bible? They're comparing him to Jesus. Are you kidding me?
And you know what? I wonder what version of the Bible they tried to get him to swear on. Maybe it was more than just a message to the institution of the church in its corrupted state as it is. Or could there be something else at play? If someone brought to me a Bible, but it's a Bible that is a product of the modern incarnation of the institution of the Christian church or the Catholic Church in the modern day, and thus is actually more of a propaganda piece of leftism and marriage to Islam, I wouldn't put my hand on that thing to swear for shit. Because then I'd instead be swearing to the devil. I mean, I wonder. I wonder what happened there. Because to me, it seems like a message to the church like, I see you now. The institution of the church, not the true believers, true Christians, true followers, but the institution, the structure, and the self-appointed arbiters of the faith. I wonder. What do you think? You let me know in the comments down below.
And he's saying Jesus would murder 90 million people in Iran? No, he wouldn't. He's called the Prince of Peace.
He also addressed how
yes, Jesus is called the Prince of Peace. However, he was not opposed to war. There's a very clear distinction there. One of the most famous things that Jesus ever said was, if you do not have a sword, sell your cloak and purchase one. God has called Israel to war and Christians to war to achieve victory in his name. And he has called upon them to win, upon us to be victorious in the face of evil. So no, don't be spreading this lie of the modern Christian that it was all about peace and love and that's it. No. Also, on another note, what did Jesus use to cast out the frickin' bean counters from the temple? What did he do? Oh, he used violence? Oh my God. This modern absolute cuckoldry of Christianity is just infuriating.
Depraved and evil it is to intentionally target civilians and civilian infrastructure.
They didn't deliberately target civilians, just more lies.
Which, make no mistake about it, the United States and Israel has been doing in Iran. It gives me so much shame to admit that, the United States is involved in that, but we.
No, it doesn't, because you're not actually American. You're anti-America. Also, you're a leftist, so you're anti-Western civilization. And you're pro-Islam, which means you're against the Iranian people.
We are, and we need to be honest about it. Take a look.
Blow up their bridges? Bridges on military bases? No, just bridges. Bridges that people cross every day to go to school and work and to worship, and yes, church, because there are over 1 million Christians in Iran. This is their Easter too. And power plants. Not the power plants attached to missile factories, okay, but civilian power plants in a country of almost 100 million people.
As far as I'm aware, they're all interconnected. Because, yeah, no, just more lies. But on top of that, though, yes, no, infrastructure is utilized by the military. Therefore, it's a legitimate target. Okay, I guess we're just going to have a continuous string of lies here, and that's it. Well, people are trying to push my buttons. It's working.
What happens when a modern country, and a country that has a nuclear program is a modern country, sorry, Iran is a modern country. What happens when it loses power? Well, people die.
Modern does not mean or equate to civilized. Iran is most certainly not civilized.
Babies connected to incubators die. People in hospitals die. And those are the first level effects. And then people begin to starve. And then you have refugee crises. People leave the cities looking for.
Same people that are asking and pleading, crying and begging for us to do more of it. Just remember that. Remember that fact. Okay?
For food. And then, yes, they move into other countries. In the region, in Europe, in the United States, you cause chaos and death, mass suffering and death when you do that.
And I just want to quickly address the typical talking point that you'll hear from Zionists or even, war-happy Americans who want to defend our involvement in this war. They'll say, well, but the Iranians, they chant death to America. Did you?
Yes. And they've acted upon it too, or they have attempted to. They have definitely tried. They've killed so many Americans already. Something around In some estimates, it's as high as 20,000 Americans, and that's just in the war on terror alone. But before that, thousands before. So, yeah, I mean, they act upon what it is they declare they want most. Anyway, but yeah, no. And again, not purposefully targeting civilians. And even though we have had collateral incidents due to targeting of military infrastructure, because they did place military infrastructure right alongside civilian infrastructure on purpose, because that's what they do. They use their people as shields for themselves. And yet we still, even accidentally, have not come nowhere close to how many the regime has slaughtered deliberately.
You know that in the 8-year Iran-Iraq war, when we were on Iraq's side, not only were we supplying Iraq with typical military weaponry to try to defeat Iran, which by the way, they didn't. That should be a hint as to how this war is playing out, but nonetheless.
Iraq and Iran were basically peers at that point in time. They're peers because at the bottom level, their militaries are not distinctly unbalanced, is how I'd describe it. They're not us. This is another issue. People have this third worldism mindset. They think all people are equal and the same. That's just not true. Otherwise, if the United States military had marched into Iraq, even with all the firepower and technology in the world, we would have lost. Or we would have been fought to a draw. If this BS about everyone is perfectly directly equal was true, there would be no such thing as a military imbalance. There'd be no such thing as technological superiority. There'd be no such thing as tactical superiority. There'd be no such thing as control of engagements. There'd be no such thing as overwhelming firepower. Because if everybody was directly equal, everybody would have all the same shit. And equal capacity. Since that's directly not the case, and objectively so, this is just a lie. Not to mention, if it were directly true that everybody was equal, everybody would be the same size and look the exact same. We'd be androgynous things. Barely even really human, actually. We'd just be another creature. But that's not even directly true in nature either. So yeah, it's just nothing but BS. Reality itself defeats this argument and the source of it.
We also supplied Iraq with.
So yeah, like they were much more peer to peer than we were to any of them at any point in time. And that's because no, not all humans are equal.
Chemical weapons that they used against the Iranians. So you tell me, if the empire that provided chemical weapons to your foe and used those chemical weapons against your people, like if that took place, would you say favorable things about the country that supplied the chemical weapons and killed your people? Actions have consequences. And if you want to understand why a foreign country has a population that would chant something like death to America, maybe dig into the reasons why they would chant that.
It's not the population, it's the IRGC, the Basij, the Basij, Cage, and all of them. The majority of the Iranian people hate the regime. They hate the IRGC. They hate the Ayatollahs, and they hate Cage. So quite literally, the reality on the ground proves you wrong. Purely by itself. Good Lord, leftist propaganda Islamic propaganda. They might as well be one and the same, except one is theist, one is atheist in name only. So yeah, let's continue.
Because I guarantee you, a country that's left alone that we've done nothing to isn't just gonna randomly start chanting death to America out of nowhere. Okay, they don't hate us for our freedom. Let's just put it that way, Bill Maher. And if you're listening to Bill Maher for political commentary and foreign policy advice, please reconsider.
You mean the same Bill Maher you used to laud and applaud back in the day? You mean the same Bill Maher who was pro-Democrat, pro-leftism, pro all of that stuff, even as recent as 2022 or 2023? And that you praised and said good things about and were in arms with? Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So look, guys.
Sensing some betrayal there, are we? Haha, can relate.
Because of all the anti-Muslim propaganda in American mainstream media, you might not know this. You might think that most of the Muslims in the world live in the Middle East and are Arabs. Not remotely true. In fact, there isn't a single Arab country in the top 5 Muslim countries. The number 1 Muslim country in the world, most populous one, is Indonesia. And has Indonesia ever chanted death to America? No. This has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Islam. We never attacked Indonesia.
Indonesia produces Islamic terrorists too. And last time I checked, yes, there were Indonesian terrorists as well. Funny how that works. But since we want to bring, things completely out of context and drag things out from other places to try and prove something, as false as it is. When was the last time there was a group of American terrorists that went to an Islamic country and under the Islamic country's nose, flew a couple of planes into their 2 tallest buildings and killed over 3,000 people? Now, for those who are saying, well, since you're labeling the IRGC as terrorists, well, then so is the American military. Again, they're doing this equalization fallacy. The two are not objectively one and the same. Different people, different aims, different culture, different actions. We, okay, have never had civilians who are terrorists go to someone else's nation and just indiscriminately slaughter civilians and bomb people. Never. Not once. Don't believe me? Look it up. Look it up. We have no homegrown terrorist organizations that go and do those things. And you can't equate the actions, right, of a actual proper military to that of a terrorist network. That's like saying police are the same as criminals. Can police do things that are criminal? Sure. Can they, aid and abet criminals? Sure. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of actions of the police are law enforcement. And at the end of the day, the vast majority of the actions of criminals are, well, crime. The two are not one and the same. The only thing they have in common is that they both are made up of people. And even then, the people that make up each one are not equal and not the same. So tired of this equivocational bullshit.
You know why we never attacked Indonesia or had someone bomb them with chemical weapons or or depose their democratically elected leaders? Why did we never do that? Because they're not next to Israel. Right? So the other big Muslim countries are Pakistan, India, Nigeria. So all of those never chanted death to America. Why? Because we never attacked them on behalf of Israel.
Right.
So,
well, Pakistan, they have nukes, so that's probably why we haven't attacked them. But,
but overall,
Well, I don't know. Us violating Pakistani airspace to go get Bin Laden when they knew he was there, and them doing nothing about it. I mean, just saying. And this happened in 2011. We violated Pakistani airspace. We went into Pakistan and got Bin Laden in his compound. So I guess you don't consider that a military action against Pakistan? I mean, I know they denied it. They were like, oh, we totally didn't know they were there. We're sorry, bro. We totally didn't know. But at the same time, we're mad. And we're going to say, mean words as a, also we totally have nukes. God, it's these types of people that call me stupid. Now, yes, on every objective metric that I can think of personally that I measure myself against, because I know people that have like 120 plus IQ. Hell, I've gone to school with them and I've served with them. Comparative to them, yes, I absolutely am stupid. I'm your average Joe. I'm more comparable to your local plumber than I am some genius like Einstein. Nowhere close. That said, even my dumb ass knows that this equivocational fallacy bullshit holds no water. Period.
As long as you're not next to Israel and Israel doesn't want to take your land, you're going to be fine. And we're not going to attack you and you're not going to hate us.
Another fallacy. Israel has given up more land in the last, I want to say about 36 years. Israel's given up more territory and land in the last 36 years than they have taken in the recent, about 5 years. They've given up more land in about 36 years than they've taken in the last 5. Doesn't sound very, territorial land grabby to me, honestly, comparatively.
The reason they hate us.
Because here's the truth. If Israel wanted to, they could wipe all the nations around them off the map. Just themselves. If they wanted to. Just themselves. And then just occupy it all. They could, easily. They're the most powerful local regional power there is there. On every metric, objectively. And yet they have not been doing that? Interesting. How do you explain that, people? How do you explain that? If you're like these two, how do you explain that?
Us is because we constantly keep attacking all of Israel's neighbors and using our money, our troops to do Israel's evil bidding. So,
even though recently we keep on telling Israel to stop doing stuff and they stop doing stuff. Multiple dozens of times. So you're telling me that's just them playing pretend and us telling them, hey, stop that real quick, and them doing it, that just never happened? Huh. Interesting.
Of course they're not going to like anyone who's attacking them. That's the most obvious thing in the world. Look, Tucker wouldn't even.
Same can be applied to us. Same can be applied to Israel. The double standards be double standarding.
Further, and I was surprised at this, but I know he was against what we did in Venezuela, but he was very adamant. Like, it is unchristian to steal their oil.
Yeah.
That's not a Christian thing to steal other people's property.
And yet, the God of Christianity has had Christians go and conquer others. This has objectively happened in the Bible. Yeah, you could tell you're not a Christian.
And the main political point he was making is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? And if you don't, eventually it has political and geopolitical consequences.
Again, takia. Or just leftist lies. Remember, these people are not of the faith. They don't believe in it, right? They're antithetical to it. They're antithesis to it. They're literally anti-Christ, but they're trying to make up some stuff about your own beliefs, religion, theology, all of it, and telling you to live by it when it's something they made up. Taking that from your beliefs and religion to pervert it for their own ends. You should not listen to these people, because not even they are accurately holding you to a standard that actually exists.
And eventually it might come to a point where people go, we're doing the law of the jungle and God's law doesn't matter. Human rights doesn't matter. The international law doesn't matter.
Human rights do not exist without a power structure to enforce them. Point blank, period. Want to talk about social constructs? That quite literally is one of them.
Well, now we're going to take America's stuff. By the way, there's already a country doing that, and that's Israel.
Only 25th Amendment is asked.
Taking America's stuff, and that's Israel. Good Lord. Oh, shit.
The problem is to get the 25th Amendment is harder than impeachment. You have to get 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate.
So what do we do?
A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. That is the definition of genocide.
It is so disappointing to see what's happened to Alex Jones, quite honestly. Throughout most of his career, he's been on it about a lot of things, and he was, rightfully so, actually trying to be a proponent for people, right? But ever since he received the $1 billion sentencing against him, ever since he, essentially had been subject to the full weight and might of the leftist machine, he has fallen considerably far. Alex Jones is a sad, tragic case of unfortunately survival. He has, quite unfortunately, turned against his own principles, his own more righteous than not past, to now today bending the knee, betraying everything and anything he ever stood for, and selling out in order to try and keep what he has left. It's a very sad case and state of affairs. And unfortunately, he's on the traitors list. Much as that sucks to say. But thank you for your past service. Damn you for your current disservice.
Not a war, not a defensive war, but a literal bombardment like Martians, attack us. We don't have a defense.
That was Alex Jones. floating the notion of invoking the 25th Amendment to oust President Donald Trump from the White House. Alex Jones, who's not a Democrat, not a lefty, but is clearly
Supposedly not either, yes. But now sold out and beholden to them? Most certainly.
very disturbed by some of Trump's posts on Truth Social, including the one where he threatened to end Iran's civilization. Now, that came prior to this fragile 2-week ceasefire with Iran, which I don't know if it's even going to last another minute, to be honest. Like, all the updates I'm seeing give me a sense that this ceasefire is done already. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's focus on the 25th Amendment, because he's not the only one in favor of invoking the 25th Amendment. Similar calls started popping up on Sunday after Trump issued this unhinged Easter morning message on Truth Social, saying that Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one.
This was all addressed earlier. If you weren't here at the beginning of the video, you're gonna go after the beginning of the. You're gonna have to go to the beginning of the video to see everything about this.
In Iran, there will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards. Okay. He then later decided to threaten Iran's entire civilization, which implies that he was thinking about using a nuke. He says Tuesday will be.
Nowhere was nukes mentioned. Nowhere was nukes mentioned. Because one of the peripheral goals that is not one of the main objectives of this is to help the Iranian people if they decide on revolution. So that said, more lies. More lies.
Power Plant Day. And I'm sorry, you had others like the Iran embassy speaking out against that, which you would expect, right? And of course, he also said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen.
Again, addressing the regime, its military apparatus, its terrorist network, and its, Ayatollah, tyranny. Not the people of Iran that have been subjected to it.
But it probably will. Now, luckily, he didn't make good on that threat and instead announced that the US and Iran would be entering this 2-week ceasefire.
We really should have, but something else must have come up for us to decide, you know what? Let's push things a bit further. Part of me thinks that the reason they did that was to lull them into a false sense of security, so that when they inevitably did what we know what they would do, as terrorists always do, and attack somebody again, and, well, go after more innocents, commit more war crimes and more terrorism again, then we'd be able to get them while they're above ground. Which I got no problem with that.
Incredibly fragile ceasefire, as I've said a million times already. But this is where things started to get serious in regard to the 25th Amendment. Take a look.
Trump, with this Iran war and the energy crisis and the PR disaster. I mean, the North Korean dictator doesn't talk like this. He talks like a supervillain from a Marvel comic.
False. Kim Jong-un has promised to literally turn Seoul. What did he say exactly? He promised to turn Seoul into something like a lake of fire or something like that with nuclear weapons, and saying they would use nuclear weapons. I will nuke everyone. They're very famous for doing this and saying this constantly. So that said, he is directly lying here, which is why I'm very sure that he's been bought and paid for and is trying to bend the knee and save himself, being on the traitor side. It would be fine if there were legitimate criticisms and legitimate cause for concern, but there is none.
Taylor Greene joined me this morning. We talked this morning, and she put out a post saying 25th Amendment. And yeah, we don't have the votes in the Senate and all the rest of it, and I don't think his cabinet's going to turn on him. But the point is it sends a very strong message of stop it.
All right, y'all got a 25th Amendment, this guy. This is not acceptable. This is like...
Kyle Kulinski is a leftist, left-wing pundit. For Alex Jones to be, period, at all, collaborating with a leftist, left-wing pundit gives much more credence to my belief that he has bent the knee and sold out. Alex has been through a lot. He's had a lot of stuff, the majority of things taken away from him. I mean, $1 billion, that's a lot. Sure, they would never get it, but it's the actual, motion of it, putting him basically in the bottom hole forever financially. That would drive anybody mad. As a man who's lost everything twice, I feel him. I've gone from a millionaire to negative 250K. And I've suffered something like that twice. $1 billion, freaking hell. Hundreds of millions even is bad. But I could not bring myself to do what Alex Jones has done. I just find it absolutely cowardly. I mean, I get it. I understand. I do. He's got family, wife and kids and all that, right? Well, okay. Some things there may be some issues there, but that's not on me to really talk too much about it. I don't know much about it. But at the same time, if you're not standing in the way of evil, that means you're allowing it. Especially if you sell out to it, then that means you enable it, making you evil as well.
He's got to go, bro. He's got to go. I'm getting messages from my Iranian friends who are saying, I'm freaking out, man. Is he going to nuke the country?
They're impeaching him? Absolutely. For the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the war.
Well, he lied. He got us into the war with lies. And, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant. And they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. And yet Bush got us into this horrible war with lies, by lying, by saying they had weapons of mass destruction, by saying all sorts of things that turned out not to be true.
Well, yeah. It's not entirely wrong there. But this is not the same thing. So far as all indications are, not the same thing at all. Anyways, that being said, let's continue. But the two are not equivocal. This is, again, false equivalence on display. This is a war. But we are not boots on the ground, occupation like Iraq or Afghanistan. Those were not supposed to be occupations in the first place. After other people took over, it became so. And that's all a different discussion. But yeah, the two are not the same or equal. It's a very different thing we're doing right now. At least for the moment. I could be wrong later. Possibly, potentially. I could be. But so far, there is no indication it's going to be the same thing.
I hope you enjoyed that compilation. That very last clip featuring now President Donald Trump dates back to 2008 when he was advocating for the removal of George W. Bush after he lied to the American people about Iraq allegedly having weapons of mass destruction. he lied us into a war, right? Which is what Trump just did when it comes to Iran, claiming that Iran had some sort of nuclear arsenal when no such thing was true.
Okay, so you're saying that everybody, period, all the different countries, intelligence agencies, and everyone else lied. At the end of the day, everything points to it actually being true and factual because they've had a nuclear program for many years and we have always acted against it. And I'm talking about we as in like the UN, NATO, and the Five Eyes, right? But this is not equivocal still because we actually do have direct proof and evidence of them having, at the low end, the capacity to have dirty bombs, nuclear weapons, or having made some, according to their own words. I mean, they threatened us with them. They said, oh, we already have basically 11 warheads, 11 nuclear warheads that we can attach to delivery vehicles, which would be intermediate range ballistic missiles, which could reach Europe. I mean, they were able to strike Diego Garcia. That's about 4,000 kilometers away. And as far as we are aware, they still have potential capacity for intercontinental ballistic missiles. So apparently everybody else is lying, including the United States of America, like multiple partners in NATO, the IAEA, all of them. Wait, I thought you said all of them were actually right about some things. So which is it? Are they liars or are they not? And also, this still is not the same thing. Because we have been not committing troops on the ground except to rescue pilots. We're not invading. Again, I'll caveat with yet, potentially, although I don't see it happening. Maybe we take over the ports, choke them off that way. Maybe we'd grab some leadership like we did last time. But from all indications, everything we've seen so far, every action combined, it doesn't look like we're going to have a Iraq War Part 2 Iranian Boogaloo. It looks more like we're trying to crush them. Very different thing. But anyway, look, I can be proven wrong later. We'll see, I guess.
Anyway, lawmakers tend to agree, by the way. Not all lawmakers, unfortunately, but a growing list of members of Congress seem to want to invoke the 25th Amendment. Take a look.
If the United States Congress has any...
How did I know it was going to be a Democrat? It's always the Democrats. And some rhinos, too, which are Republicans in name only. They're in the Republican Party, but they're Democrats.
life left in it, every member of Congress and senator must be calling for Trump's removal today based on the 25th Amendment. He's threatening the entire destruction of a civilization. This is a moral crime. It is.
Okay, so Ro Khanna is calling us out, but he said nothing about terrorism. I've never heard him say shit about terrorism, period. And terrorism is nothing but a war crime. And actually, it's international crimes, not just limited to wartime. So yeah, again, this holds no water, period. I don't care what a Democrat has to say.
A war crime. We need to be demanding that Congress convene today.
Not to mention this guy is not a real American.
And we need to be invoking the 25th Amendment.
I'm sure you've seen Donald Trump's unhinged post from this morning. He is completely unstable and dangerous. Impeachment is the top priority. No more war criminal in the White House.
I think every single person in this country needs to be calling the phones of Republican members of Congress and senators relentlessly today. Like, of all of the issues that have come up over the last year, all have been devastating, but we are talking about the potential for nuclear war here. That is the language that Donald Trump is using, and we should.
No, that's the language you're using. Donald Trump has not said anything about using a nuke. Period. All right, back in the saddle again. I'm back in the saddle again. All right, we ready to continue? Let's continue.
Should not pretend that it's not.
Speaker John.
If you're still here, you're amazing. I am not saying that lightly or to like be sycophantic, and I don't hand out compliments like candy. That makes no sense to me. If you're going to compliment somebody, it's got to be something special. If you just compliment everybody, it doesn't mean shit. Anyway, that's saying you are amazing. Do you know why? Vast majority of people have an average attention span of about 5 seconds. Actually, somewhat less. The fact you're still here truly does make you, comparative to everyone else, amazing. So, thank you. You are part of an ever-growing, almost exceptional few.
Johnson, you need to call the Congress back into session. We need to put an end to this nonsense. This is dangerous. It's not the American way, and it has to stop immediately.
So those.
Again, I don't care at all what some Democrats say. On every objective, moral, and ethical metric, period. Not a single one of them can cast any judgments, not only against their peers in Congress, but against the president. Not a single one. At all.
Those were all the reactions from, I'm sure you'll notice, Democratic lawmakers prior to the supposed 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran, which was announced last night. However, again, fragile ceasefire. And on top of that, the so-called ceasefire did very little to settle demands that Trump be ousted. So as Senator Ed Markey, who was one of the senators who called for Trump's removal, stated, this is on X, I'm glad there is a reported ceasefire deal with Iran, but we shouldn't be in this illegal war in the first place. I agree.
What is the definitional metric for an illegal war? Because by all accounts, Russia invading Ukraine's an illegal war. But did the fact that everyone's declaring it illegal do anything about it? In fact, did anyone that declared it illegal do anything about it? Besides just feed Ukraine to Russia? No? Oh, well then, what is an illegal war? Tell you what, let's look it up real quick. I just learned of this really fancy function on this smartphone when it comes to the search functional thingamajigs. Whoops. No, give me a freaking, there we go. All right. There's this fancy microphone thing I can do with it now. What is an illegal war? Here's the answer it gives. I use Brave browser, by the way. An illegal war is a conflict that violates international treaties or domestic laws, primarily defined by the prohibition on aggressive war under the Kellogg-Briand Pact in 1928 and the United Nations Charter of 1945. Under the UN Charter, the use of force is illegal unless it falls into one of three specific exceptions: individual or collective self defense against an armed attack, authorization by the UN Security Council, or intervention requested by a legitimate government within a sovereign state. Okay, so that's the definition of an illegal war. So, what makes it, what makes it, first off, illegal? Because the Iran war doesn't fall under, well, any of those categories. Iran has been attacking us and the international community's shipping, and has been attacking Israel, which is an ally of ours, like it or not. And they've been attacking us through proxies throughout their history, so I'm trying to find where this falls under it. Individual or collective self-defense against an armed attack. Well, them sponsoring terrorists as an extension of their military apparatus and branch. Okay, well, we're defending against that. We're just doing it with overwhelming firepower. Authorization by the UN Security Council. Okay, the UN Security Council, actually, technically, they've lost the standing to be able to even do that in the first place, because they're defending Iran's actions against their own people, which is indiscriminate slaughter. And they didn't condemn Iran conducting terrorism and funding and sponsoring it. They've defended Iran for doing so. So there's no legitimacy to that one, right? In order to have legitimacy for that, you have to stand on what is directly the principles you're supposed to represent and be an enforcer. Well, guess who is basically the totality of the UN's military capacity for enforcement? The United States of America. Funny how that works. Speaking of the Russia-Ukraine war, have they done anything about that? No? Okay. Or intervention requested by a legitimate government within a sovereign state. Which, since these same people that believe in and, who believe in and declare that the democratic method, which is basically the rule of the people, at least that's what they declare it is, right? These same people who are calling this an illegal war believe that it's the majority that rules, right? Democracy and all that. So that's the same standard they're using, I think. So since that's the case, that means the actual legitimate government within the sovereign state of Iran is the Iranian people, who are asking for intervention and who are asking for the United States of America to crush their tyrannical government into dust and to help them be freed. So, how is this at all an illegal war? It's not illegal domestically either. So, again, just more Democrat outright lying propaganda. If there was any merit or water to this at all, I would take some pause and try to go through it more. But there's none. Not to mention the UN Security Council, they don't do anything in the first place. Okay, I will show you exactly how this works. I have declared it illegal that I'm not a billionaire. Same exact functional logic at play here. I have declared it's illegal for me not to be a billionaire. Now, does me declaring it to be so make it true and real at all? If your answer is no, congratulations. You're actually literally smarter than a great number of people. And at the same time, they're just outright lying here. The Democrats are at the top level. Everybody else is just, well, they are stupid. But so am I, so I guess come see, come say. That said, they're just being malevolently, maliciously deceitful. That's the whole purpose of this. They're not talking to me and you. They're talking to their loyal NPC foot soldiers.
With him on that. And Donald Trump can't simply threaten war crimes with impunity. Congress needs to get back in session now to stop this war and remove Donald Trump. I mean, okay, let's pause for a second. What Ed Markey is saying there is so accurate. Just because he didn't follow through on carrying out the mass slaughter of 90 million people in Iran,
which he never declared he would do. He's targeting the regime, its military elements, the terrorist network, and the infrastructure that supports it. He's not attacking the Iranian people directly.
Doesn't mean Trump hasn't done significant damage by throwing that threat out in the first place, which is
more leftist propaganda. Remember, words are violence. Therefore, if I say mean word to them, then it justifies them Charlie Kirking me. Remember, that's how their logic functions. Directly so. Remember, words are violence. But silence is also violence if you're not saying the line that I want you to say. Remember that. That's how these people function and operate. That's their logic, okay?
Why I made this point on the show yesterday. The whole notion of Western civilization has been dismantled. When you have barbaric threats coming out of a country that purports to value liberal democracy and wants to protect Western civilization, I'm sorry, threatening nuclear war while, taking the mantle of Western civilization makes me not like Western civilization. Now,
you don't like Western civilization in the first place. So this is just performative BS. If you're leftist, you want Western civilization to be destroyed and dismantled so you can usher in the utopia over the bodies of millions you will slaughter for wrongthink. This is true for every single leftist dominated nation that's ever existed, period. They do the same thing ad infinitum on repeat every single time. Same thing with Islam. Two sides of the same exact. Actually, no, I should rephrase that. They are both on the same page, but they're different lines.
Of course, it's this perversion of Western civilization, right? I mean, I'd like to say it's a perversion, although we're the only country that's used atomic bombs in the past, of course. But the fact that we are living under a government that proudly threatens civilians, civilian infrastructure, that
we haven't threatened civilians. We are threatening legitimate targets in support of the IRGC and the current Islamic Iranian regime. The government, its ayatollahs, its leadership, military leadership, and infrastructure, all of which are legitimate targets.
keeps bankrolling a pariah state, a genocidal state, a terror state like Israel.
Funny how there's supposedly a genocide happening from Israel, but there's any Palestinians left? In fact, actually, there's supposedly now more of them, but there's also now supposedly, closer to the same amount. Weird. Oh, wait, you purposefully, right? They do this deliberately. Take the word of Hamas on how many have died and how many are still alive. When in their religion it calls for taqiyya against the kafar, against the infidel. And yes, they do it on purpose. Of course they do. That's how it functions. That's how that works. But yeah, against the kafar, it's okay to lie. Even Anna Kasparian, who believes in leftism and believes in Islam being a good thing, even she's considered a kafar because she would be a useful idiot for them. And then once they get power, they'd just cut her head off or make her a slave. That's how that works. But yeah, so funny how there's supposedly a genocide happening, but there's still a bunch of Palestinians left, and Israel sends food packages to them and still supplies them stuff. Pretty weird attempt at a genocide, if you ask me. But then again, that's on purpose.
No one has done more damage to Western civilization than the United States government and its military industrial complex and its relationship with Israel. After Hamas carried out October 7th, what we kept hearing Netanyahu say over and over again was, this is a war between civilization and barbarism.
Which is factually true. You don't see Israelis going en masse and then just burning babies in their cribs for fun, or butchering families for fun. In fact, every time I've been told to look, and I do it quite plenty and often, I do not ever find evidence of these actions being carried out, but there's actual video evidence of what Hamas has done to Israelis and Christians and their own people. Funny. Very strange, isn't it? I encourage y'all. If you don't believe me, go ahead and look it up. Now, you have to sift through a lot of AI videos that were made by leftists and Islamics. So if you're able to filter out AI, I strongly recommend it if you can. And then just go to original source only record. You're going to find that the majority of everything as far as civilian casualties incurred by Israel was collateral in pursuit of Hamas. Because, well, when your enemy uses human shields as a default setting, well, then, unfortunately, you have to go through the civilians to get to them. You have no other choice. And as someone who's fought that war on the ground for years, I know this better than most. It's not pleasant, it's not fun, but there's nothing else you can do except remove the threat. So the same doesn't happen to everyone. But yeah, that out of the way. Whereas, on the other hand, Hamas is on record many multiple dozens, if not hundreds, now possibly thousands of times, indiscriminately slaughtering civilians. their own people who supposedly put them in power. So it's quite funny that at the same time, there's supposed to be a genocide from one side, there's real indiscriminate civilian slaughter happening on the other side. Very interesting.
It's about time that we realize the barbarism has been coming from us. We need to sever ties with Israel. We need to engage in arms and fund.
Sever ties? No. Here's my thing, right? Is that what are we getting out of Israel? People are going to think that I'm like pro Israel all the way up and down, left and right, because I'm part Jew. No, absolutely not. Same thing with NATO, same thing with UN, freaking anybody, honestly. Okay? What are we getting out of Israel? What do we get in return? Okay? Well, first off, economically, they buy stuff from us. So, all right, if we got money going to Israel, but they're buying stuff from us at the same time, I'm not opposed to that, okay? I like capitalism. True capitalism, not the leftist crony BS we live under right now, where all of the corporate elites are all leftists that are price gouging everybody here at the bottom and making it impossible to frickin' live for no goddamn reason. And it is leftism. People keep saying, no, it is capitalism. No, it's not. Capitalism is free trade. We don't have that right now. All right, I'm back at it again. Had to deal with someone I live with at the moment. Where was I? Oh, fuck. I forgot where I was. This is getting real annoying.
Embargo when it comes to barbarism. It's about time that we realize the advertising when it comes to Israel. And yeah, I think that we need to do significant damage control. We need to engage in arms and funding embargo when it comes to Israel.
If we were getting nothing from Israel, I would not be opposed to that. But seeing as that they help us in the Middle East, right? They're our greatest ally there. Okay, I mean, everything else notwithstanding, everything else aside, I know all the stuff that people are going to rail against here. Because here's the fact, right? The greater majority who are against Israel are anti-Semites. How do I know? Well, because anything and everything that is possibly or potentially good about Israel, they refute and refuse. They just hate Israel because they hate Jews. That's point blank, period. Now, are there some who do have a legitimate criticism and grievance against Israel? Sure. There are some. And I agree with them in some measure. Because I too don't want to be spending money I'm not getting shit back for my country. Period. NATO, what the hell are they doing for us right now? They're acting like the new USSR. They're all run by freaking leftists. Even Poland is having issues. And they're supposed to be, more based. Even Italy with Meloni. Even they are having problems. Now they're treating us like we're a potential enemy. Not because of Trump, but because now their free ticket, their free golden goose, their free meal is getting taken away. All right? Oh, we have free health care. You know why? Because you don't have to pay for your own freaking defense. We are the UN. We are NATO. we're the majority partner in every regard. And these countries have been living off of our back ever since World War II. So freaking tired of this shit. What are we paying into NATO we get back? What? Where and why? Oh, bases? Okay. Did you know that in every single scenario run by internationally, domestically, about the US versus the world, we win? Sure, we take lumps. Sure, we suffer a bit, but we come out on top. And that's us pitting ourselves in the worst case scenario. Period. Without us, NATO and the UN, just a coalition of uselessness. And now they're just leftists. The new USSR is Europe. When you make Russia look decent in comparison, you have a huge goddamn problem. Now, is Russia necessarily a bad or evil country? That's debatable. Maybe, maybe not. I don't like the mentality of Russians, where it's just like, well, whatever. Okay, because it portends nothing good for anybody. I mean, I appreciate the mentality and to a certain degree, as I've said in other videos, because I appreciate how absolutely just sheer obstinate headed they are. But that comes from the simple fact that, well, Russians are really simple. They're very simple. In fact, they're excruciatingly so. If you meet westernized Russians and then Russians that still live in Russia, world's magnitude of difference between the two. Right? But yeah, no, just when you make Russia look, considerably more free, that's insane. As J.D. Vance said, I fear the victors of the Cold War have become that which they fought against. And they've been living off our back this whole time? No. Screw off. You want to get a free lunch from us, you better provide any and all that we ask for, period. No questions asked. Including the freedom of your people. Anyways, that said, same thing. If we were getting nothing from Israel, right? If they didn't help us in the Middle East, then I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be like, okay, they're not buying stuff from us, but they do. They do in huge amounts. They purchase a lot from us. They do some trade with us as well. And they're a military ally and partner in the Middle East. They've done a huge amount on their own. If we were getting nothing from them, period, I'd be of the same mind as with NATO or Europe or the EU or UN. Nope, cut it off. Done. But we do get more out of Israel by itself than all of the goddamn UN and NATO combined, which is an absolute travesty, because we should be getting everything from all of them, because we're the ones who are ensuring that they don't have to do too much. But Europeans will snub their nose at you and be like, oh, we're morally and ethically superior to you inferior Americans because we have free health care. Subsidized by the American taxpayer. When that tap runs out, let's see what happens.
And yeah, I think that we need to do significant damage control because we have destroyed these countries. How many countries have we destabilized in the Middle East? On behalf of Israel, it did nothing for us, of course. So it needs to stop. And maybe invoking the 25th Amendment is the first step. But here's the thing. As Alex Jones stated earlier, he's correct. That's an incredibly difficult thing to accomplish. And in fact, previous efforts at holding Trump accountable have only made Trump more popular. So I don't know if invoking the 20 or attempting to invoke the 25th Amendment is going to work. What I do know is that the Trump administration, along with our relationship with Israel, is a huge liability for the American people.
No, it's not, because with Israel involved, we don't have to do as much. And Israel is acting basically as the ground force for other things, right? So, hey, look, I don't want us to go on the ground unless we have absolutely no other choice, like rescuing pilots. I don't. All right. I also do not want a 20-year occupation. I also don't want a Bush Obama style regime change. I don't want that. But I do want to see Iran. I want to see the Iranian people freed. I want to see the number one state sponsor of terror stopped. And if possible, liquidate everyone involved. And I want to see a better future for Iran as a different nation. Because here is the thing that kind of rails against a bit closer to my more isolationist, side, because I do have that, is that if other countries around the world are doing better, then by default, our situation is improved. Why? Because of international trade, the international economy, and because of the fact we're all part of one world. Now, that's not me going leftist, collectivist, or, none of that shit. That's me thinking more on the human level. There is an element towards humans who have not, and we see the results, right? In Africa, it's rampant. Indiscriminate slaughter is an everyday reality there. So, that being said and spoken of, the better other nations are doing, the greater and more prosperous, right? The more peace we're going to see, the less threats to our safety and security, and the greater chances we have towards a progress for humanity in general. I'm a fan of the idea of trying to accomplish more human flourishing. Not in the leftist, not from the leftist, ideology, perspective, agendas. No, because that just leads to more pain, suffering, and you cannot reach utopia without slaughtering everybody. Not the leftist ideal of utopia. However, we can aim for greater accomplishment for humanity still. That's something I would like to see. But that said, at the very least, I would like to see a number one state sponsor of terror absolutely destroyed and then divided against itself.
This isn't TDS. Okay, I would say the same thing if it were a Democrat in office right now. And
false. You said nothing bad about Obama that I've ever been able to find. You said nothing bad about Biden either, as far as I'm aware. I couldn't find anything, at least. Somebody let me know if you could find something about that. But no, you only ever rail against right-wingers and Republicans. You're only cool with Tucker now. You're only cool with Alex Jones now because they're traitors. They bent the knee. That's all.
In fact, I turned on the Democratic Party thanks to Biden and his handling of the genocide in Gaza.
Oh, really? Or was that just performative nonsense? Because again, my default setting when it comes to leftists is the same with Western females. Hashtag never believe them.
His handling of the genocide in Gaza was to fuel it, was to fund it, was to provide weapons for it. Joe Biden doesn't deserve to live in peace, given the war crimes he aided and abetted. So I'm very clear about that. For me, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of what we want to be as a country, how we want to be represented as a people. And I don't want to be represented as bloodthirsty war criminals.
But you're the one presenting us as such and separating yourself from us because you want the destruction of Western civilization to bring in and usher the communist utopia and an Islamic jihad to enable it. Again, more malevolent, malicious, outright lies.
The American people are not bloodthirsty war criminals. Our politicians might be, but we're not. Now, getting back to this, according to Axios's Andrew Solinder, who has been keeping track of the lawmakers who are calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, well, there are 85 as we speak right now. The number could change, but as of now, there are 85 House Democrats calling for Trump to either be impeached or removed by Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. I'm going to read you some of the more prominent names. I'm not going to read you all 85. But despite what Jenks said on the show yesterday, I really want to make sure we clarify this. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. He didn't know at the time, so that's why that mistake was made. Representative Nancy Pelosi is involved. So is.
Let's see. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Nancy Pelosi, Ro Khanna, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Summer Lee, Ayanna Pressley, Pramod Jayapal, Jasmine Crockett, Jamie Raskin, Robert Garcia, Eric Swalwell, Rich Torres. Wait, isn't like half this list under investigation right now for being connected to fraud and corruption? I'm pretty sure about half this list is under that right now. Especially those in Minnesota and California. So yeah, and Jasmine Crockett is basically losing her seat, I believe, maybe. Well, Swalwell. But yeah, real funny. If they weren't Democrats, I might actually give a shit.
Ro Khanna, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Summer Lee, who I think is really underrated as a lawmaker. I think she's pretty fantastic. You have Representative Ayanna Pressley, Pramila Jayapal, Jasmine Crockett, Jamie Raskin, Robert Garcia, Eric Sokrat, which, it makes me disappointed. Republicans can be better than this. I know for a fact that they see the behavior of Donald Trump and they don't agree with it.
Well, yeah, there's some that don't agree with it because they're rhinos, the Democrats who are wearing Republican skin. But that said, yes, the Republicans are a major disappointment to me as well. Why? Because we have given them all the power possible, and they've done absolutely jack with it. Absolutely nothing. In fact, they are siding with Democrats on quite a few things. Huge disappointment. Primary, all of them. Get them all out of office. We know who they are. The lists are all over X, Twitter. All right, now people are taking the doom pill, they're taking the black pill. I'm like, no. Now that you see their true colors, now you know what to look for. So ensure you do everything you can to get them out and swap them out and replace them with someone whom you think will be the one that will enforce your will. Okay? The answer is not to do nothing and let Democrats win and then end up under, the boots of the Democrats again, except this time much worse because they said what they're going to do. They have said what they're going to do. They're already doing it in Virginia. And the fact of the matter is that if you're choosing to do nothing, you're enabling Democrats. If you choose not to vote, you're handing your vote over to a Democrat to vote against you and for you. Again, the banality of evil is greater than active evil because the banality of evil allows for it to thrive and flourish. You have to either be actively against it or you are for it. People will try to say some dumb shit like it's not black and white, not everybody wants to get involved. Well, those who don't want to get involved quite usually end up in the middle, and then they end up getting slaughtered by that one side anyway. Your choices are very binary on this. Unfortunately, it would be nice to think there was some fantasy middle ground. There is not. It does not exist. That being spoken of, and that fact being laid out there, again, don't doom pill or black pill. Get more involved. Get more, engaged in the fight. Because we're going to see something worse than Biden 2.0. We're going to see Spanberger in Virginia when if the Democrats are allowed to get power again. Not to mention, there should be nothing but proof and evidence that the Democrats and rhinos are the enemies of our republic. In every way, shape, and form. The Dignitad Act to try and give amnesty to illegals to buy their votes against the American people. The fraud and corruption and waste of our tax dollars that are supposed to go for stuff we want to actually happen. You know what's funny is that we actually could have achieved something akin to universal health care and free education through tax paying if all of this fraud, waste, and abuse hadn't been occurring in the first place. Not to mention, getting out of our deficit debt by getting away from the NATO and EU, which gives us nothing in return. Sure, they buy some stuff from us, but they don't buy much. In fact, their militaries are, for the most part, except for maybe Poland and Germany's trying, but they're failing hard. The whole of Europe is an absolute, complete and total sinkhole of our tax dollars. Why in the hell are we paying them to be lazy assholes? Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia. Okay, well then you deal with it. If Iran's not your fight, even though they could have targeted y'all with missiles, then Ukraine ain't ours. Much love as I have for my Ukrainian brothers in uniform, much as I am proud of the boys I helped train in Ukraine when I was there, it's still not our fight. We pay so much into NATO and they do nothing for us. Into the UN and it's against us. Yeah, no, we're getting nothing out of it. Bring all that money back home.
And they think that it's counterproductive. Then do your job as a member of Congress. Put your country before your party and do what's right. But so far, we haven't seen anything from Republican lawmakers in regard to invoking the 25th Amendment. By the way, invoking the 25th Amendment doesn't mean a Democrat is suddenly in power. It means that J.D. Vance will be president. Okay, so, do with that information what you will. Now, keep in mind that everyone who signed on, again, they're Democrats, no current Republican lawmakers involved. However, there is a former Republican lawmaker who's been very loud about this, and that's former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says that the 25th Amendment should be invoked.
She's basically a Democrat now. She sold out as well. And there's plenty of suspicion around this because, around the same time that they were starting to, track down illegals everywhere, and penalize people for being corrupt and illegal stuff and all that, was around the same time Marjorie Taylor Greene originally, within the same time frame all that started, started floating the idea of leaving the Republican Party. Are they necessarily connected? Maybe. Possibly, potentially, maybe. But I think more that she's bending the knee because it's more lucrative. It pays more to be on the left side of things. That's just an objective fact, and it's a false. Basically it's a forced dichotomy there, because on the left they have super ultra mega rich sponsors, and the majority of corporate elites, right? The oligarchs, the CEOs, all of them, the majority of them are leftists ideologically in their agendas and how they treat people at the bottom. Very few of them are right wing. Hell, even Elon Musk isn't even a proper right winger. He's a liberal. He's not right wing. So that said, it's more lucrative to be on that side of things than it is to be on the right and to be right. It pays more money. That's just a fact. That's why you see right-wing YouTubers always struggling and fighting an uphill battle like freaking Sisyphus pushing the rock and boulder uphill, and like Atlas having to hold up the world, versus the left-wingers who are just spoon-fed by, spoon-fed gold. Okay? All the investment firms are on their side. All the corporations are on their side. The vast majority of the economic apparatus is on their side. That's just an objective fact. You can't live under capitalism and have left-wingers in charge of it. That's functionally impossible, because it's not true capitalism. At the very best, it's crony capitalism. And at the very worst, it's a leftist-dominated system of economics. Right? Them just doing what they've always done. So anyway, yeah, just such a load of crap.
Not a single bomb has dropped on America. We cannot kill an entire civilization. This is evil and madness. Now, let's get into what is being done, because there are
Well, yeah. We don't want a bomb to be dropped on America, period. So any and all chances we can take to preempt that and prevent it, abso-freaking-lutely. 100%. It is folly to wait until your enemy, who is going to kill you, to come and start killing you before you do anything against them. Absolute foolishness.
Words, and then there are actions, right? So Democrats are exploring.
And these are the same people who are okay with terrorism because it's the little guy punching up against the big guy.
Two possible ways of removing Trump from office, either through impeachment, which they attempted to do twice in his first term and failed because, Republicans had control of the Senate. You needed a 2/3 majority of senators to vote in favor of impeachment, and Republicans are terrified. I don't know why. I mean, Trump's popularity is an all-time low, but they're terrified. Section 4 allows the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to declare the president unable to discharge his duties and instead vest those powers and duties in the vice president.
But they have to prove that is true, first and foremost. They have to prove, right? Which, since they didn't use this against Biden, they can't use it against Trump. That's just the facts.
That's what would happen under the 25th Amendment, right? Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. The section might be invoked in the case that the president is unable or unwilling to declare himself incapacitated.
Like Biden.
I mean, have you listened to him? He sounds pretty incapacitated. Congress can also determine.
Oh, he's not saying thing I want him to do, so therefore he's incapacitated.
By a 2/3 vote, whether to permanently remove the president or to return the president to his duties.
I was going to say, I was very certain it has to be like 75% of Congress that has to be on board, which is never going to happen because the majority of Republicans are still, thankfully, not completely and totally useless.
Gotta be honest, I see J.D. Vance's political future looking a lot like Kamala Harris's because he's repeating her mistakes. Kamala Harris refused to show any daylight between herself and Biden when she was running in the election. And it seems like JD Vance is taking that same path.
What? Kamala Harris didn't do anything. Period. She did nothing. At all. Whatsoever. Whereas JD Vance is busy actually doing shit. He's not just campaigning around the country, he's going to meetings, right? He's splitting duties with the president. Okay, he's being an active vice president, which Kamala Harris never was and never had been. And he's actually getting stuff done. Yeah, again, more false equivalence to the T.
Which I'm happy about. I think JD Vance is a warmonger just like the rest of them. I think these
warmonger, no. No, JD Vance is a warmonger. I'm closer to a warmonger than JD Vance is. Only by the default that I am not opposed to war to ensure that my enemies do not have the chance to act war upon me. Right? I am not opposed to preempting defense. All right? A good defense is a very good offense. That said, all right, I'm opposed to war if there are legitimate and actionable alternatives. I have been there on the ground. I know what the cost of war is. But if there is no other way to secure a good, all right, safe, secure future with prosperity and such, if there's no other alternative to that, then yes, war must be had.
Efforts to like launder his.
But yeah, no, he's not a warmonger in any regard. If he were, he'd be closer to people like Lindsey Graham and John Bolton than he would be President Trump.
His reputation as some peacenik is ridiculous. There's no indication he's a peacenik at all, at all, at all. Show me a shred of evidence indicating that he was really pushing for and fighting for peace. Don't believe it. He has only regurgitated Trump's talking points. He has only defended what Trump has done in the Middle East. So if he really cares about his political future and genuinely wants to position himself as an anti-war Republican, now is the time to do it, but he ain't doing it.
The only way for him to have a political future is if he does what I want him to do. Okay.
Representative Sri Thandar from Michigan and Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas have each sent letters to Vance and Trump's cabinet. Crockett writes that it has.
Oh, they wrote a strongly worded letter. The lowest, and I mean the lowest threshold of entry to be considered to have been doing something. Got it.
Has become indisputably apparent that the American public, or to the American public, that the president is deranged.
No evidence of that. All lies.
Likely suffering from dementia, and
again, no evidence of that. All lies.
Warns that he has brought the United States to the precipice of committing one of the largest war crimes in modern history.
Also no evidence of that. All lies. You know, I do like being proven right and true the majority of the time, but I also hate it at the same time. The fact we live alongside these people and they're allowed to vote and hold office, we should have made leftism illegal during McCarthy's time, and McCarthy didn't go far enough.
Crockett went further in condemning Trump. She condemned Republican leadership for enabling the president's actions, calling their complicity among America's greatest scandals, as the administration continues to push the country toward forever wars in the Middle East while ravaging the American economy and defiling the Constitution. Now, Jasmine Crockett's real good at attacking Trump. There's no question about it. I'll give her credit for that, I guess. We didn't forget your support for Israel. And Israel is at the heart of the forever wars in the.
Wait, Jasmine Crockett supported Israel? I didn't know that. Maybe she got paid by AIPAC, which I hate the idea across the board of lobbies. I hate them so much. I hate the political action committees. I hate get the money out. Get the money out. Cap the base salary to the highest median of their locality and keep it there. That way you filter out the freaking jackanapes that are in it for the money, power, and fame, and, all that. And influence. All right? If I were sent to Congress, I'd be like, look, hey, what's the median earnings for who I'm representing? Okay, it's $100K a year. All right, I will never make more than that, period. Now, I'm not a full-on, complete and total, buffoon, right? I'm not a complete and total dummy when it comes to, the whole idea of servant leadership. No, you shouldn't be a servant in a leadership position. But you should still serve the people who put you in the position. There's a difference. Servant leadership is like sacrificing all from yourself for no gain. It basically, it's just, what's the word? It's self-martyrdom, and it's performative. You don't get nothing done by just jumping in front of the bullet and calling it good. Okay? You need to do more. You need to wear a vest proper to stop the bullet and then ensure the safety and security of those behind you. If you're nothing but just a bullet catcher, and that's all the shit you can do, you can't return fire, you can't figure out where the enemy is located, you don't know where the shots came from, you don't know what to do next, right? If you're just freaking an NPC, no. You must be an active participant in leadership. You must lead. You must do shit. Okay? Now, should you still serve the people in their best interest? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean you're a freaking, a slave and servant of whimsy. I hate that idea. It pisses me off. Anyway, that said, that's how I'd structure it. I'd be like, you know what? You made millions already? Okay, cut off your paycheck. You're a millionaire. What do you need more millions for? I'd be such a spiteful asshole. I really would be. Because it's like, look, why am I enriching myself when my people are suffering? That does not make sense to me. Unless I'm evil. But on principle, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't compute. No. Absolutely not.
Middle East. So removing Trump, she's super motivated by that. But she's not motivated to end the forever wars because she takes the AIPAC money. She goes on those Israel trips.
Okay. So she is paid by AIPAC. Which I don't like. I don't like this thing. Money in politics. There should be none. If you're in these positions, you shouldn't be able to enrich yourself at the cost of those below you. Period.
And when she was challenged on this, she doubled down. She got real defensive. So it goes beyond attacking Trump for me, way beyond attacking Trump, because again, this is not a partisan issue for me. I don't think this is a partisan issue for any good faith person who's been paying close attention to this issue. If Jasmine Crockett is being real about how she would like to stop the United States from engaging in forever wars in the Middle East, we need to sever our relationship with Israel. It's that simple. Is she willing to do that? We'll wait and see. But so far, there's been no indication of that. Now, 77-year-old Representative John Larson of Connecticut introduced articles of impeachment. There will be any real change. Is a change in who controls Congress.
Is this just more ranting, or is there going to be more I can just rail against?
Certainly the House of Representatives, possibly the Senate. But for now, I just feel that you need to get Republicans on board in order to make this happen. I don't just feel, I know for a fact. So if this is more than just theater and virtue signaling.
You mean like you are theater all the time?
Signaling to Democratic voters. How about doing some work behind the scenes where you negotiate with Republican lawmakers and get them to agree to the program here? Otherwise, this is going nowhere. And I would like to see something actually happen. I'd like to see some accountability for once when it comes to what the executive branch is carrying out and bankrolling and implicating the American people in when it comes to atrocities in the Middle East.
Okay, was that it? Yeah, that was it.
And now here's our president, not even a month and a half.
Damn. 31-minute video became 3 hours. Freaking hell. If anybody's still watching this, thank you. And you are very amazing if you're able to stick it all the way to the end. Holy shit. I better pay attention and read your criticisms now. I owe it to you. That being said, thank you very much, Big Busu. That's all my thoughts on it, and I appreciate it. But yeah, what do you think? You let me know in the comments down below. All right, you know what time it is. Be good. Be safe. Make a left for yourselves. Don't compromise safety and security for nobody and nothing. Death and disaster is only a second away. Do what you can today. And I will see all of you in the next one. I am Badger 7 Actual, the formerly homeless veteran, Blast Cat Badger, out.